Was there a moment that, as far as the racism is concerned, that you were like, you know what, I'm just going to bow out. I don't even want to deal with this.
No.
It never got that bad?
It did, but I was never going to do that.
Right.
I was prepared to die in the race car that day.
So you think the Democratic Party cares about black people? Believe it or not, Rex, I think that tweet is part of the problem. Do you feel like we could have addressed this homeless issue much sooner? You have to speak a word, make it a good one.
Okay, let's go.
Welcome back to The Word. Once again, I'm Jackie Ray. This is going to be a story of how cool Long Beach is, because I was just out and about the other day. And for those of you who are new here, you might not know this about me, but I try really hard to shop at Black-owned businesses. That's something that's very difficult to do when it comes to beauty supplies, though, because I'm just going to read you some facts. So there's not that many Black-owned beauty supply stores. And for those of you out there who have tried to make sure you spend your dollars with Black-owned beauty supplies, what you'll find is, especially if you're doing something like extensions, you'll be able to get maybe some hair products at one place, but then you'll usually have to end up going to an Asian-owned beauty supply store to get those extensions. And the reason for that is because Korean Americans have cornered the market for well over a decade. And they have the controlling interest in the manufacturing, distribution, and retail sale of all extensions. And according to Nielsen, the hair care industry is estimated to be valued at, and I know you know this, $2.5 billion a year. African American people, we spend 9 times the amount of any other race in that business. So it only makes sense that we should have more ownership in that, but we don't. We have less than 5% of beauty supply stores around the country. And that's not just in Long Beach, but around the country are Black owned. So I went, I was out for, again, those of you who are new here, I change my hair a lot. I do it myself because I, for some reason, have patience for that.
Art to the people. Looks
Right.
great. Looks great.
So I was out and I was going to do my hair, but I was like, you know what? I don't feel like doing that. So maybe get some nails and stuff. And so I didn't feel like driving to the typical Black-owned beauty supply store that I go to because it's in Inglewood. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, you know what? I know it's not Black-owned, but I'm just going to go in there and I'm just going to get my stuff. And I go in there and guess who I see?
Ta-da!
Standing behind the counter. And I'm like, what's he doing back there?
Right. Where are the Asians?
Because I promise you, it was just 3 weeks earlier, I had went to my beauty supply store, the Black-owned one in Inglewood, and I had gotten all my hair care stuff. And I was like, you know what? I want to do a ponytail. Right. So then I went into the one that I met you at, and it was, and I asked the guy, I was like, are you the owner? He said, yeah. And that was an Asian man. Right. So when I see this Black man behind the counter, I'm like, sir, who are you? And he goes, I'm the owner. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to Mr. George Mack. He is the owner of, what is it called?
LB Hair Gallery.
Hair Gallery. It's at 1323 Long Beach Boulevard. I have the address memorized, but I didn't have the name memorized. Right. But this is a long road, I'm sure. But in us talking, because, you know, we have to talk, we have to get to know each other. Absolutely. There was only 2 Black people who have raced in the Indy 500. George Mack is one of them. Like, how this is a long, windy road. So let's start with, you were born in Hollywood, California.
Born in Hollywood, the LA area. Mm-hmm. Both my parents were city workers.
Okay.
My mom retired as an investigator for the DA.
Nice.
And my dad was on the board of supervisors and all that. But my dad's a motorhead.
Okay.
Still to this day.
Is he?
Motorhead. And so when I was, I'm not even sure, probably 7 or 8, you know, we thought about motorcycles, bicycles. There was another brother, Al Evans, that drove the RTD. Remember the?
Yes, the Rapid Transit District.
Or the Richard T. Davis.
Rough, Tough, and Dirty is
Rough,
what we used to call it.
So they were buddies, you know, they were both brothers and they were working for the city. Mm-hmm. And along the way, they got to talking at work. And he and Al kind of struck up a friendship, and he asked Al, "Hey, you know what? You know, you and your son are going where? You guys go-karts? What are these go-karts?" So then my dad comes home and tells me, takes me to the Queen Mary.
They had go-karts at the Queen
This
Mary?
is what's interesting. I wanted to save that for right now. That little tidbit. It was by the Queen Mary. They set up a track in the parking lot of the Queen Mary, 1978.
What? I had no
Yes.
idea.
So I have some pictures. I'll show you some pictures. And my dad took me out there, and we looked. I remember I was a little kid. I was about eight, about 8 or 9 at that time. Think you can drive one of these? And he tells me, brake pedals on the left, gas pedals on the right. And I remember I looked up at him. I said, it doesn't look that hard. My dad came home with a go-kart hanging out of the back of his trunk of his car. That was the start of it.
That is a great story. I feel like I've learned something. I had no idea about that as far as the go-karts.
There's a lot to be discussed.
I'm sure.
The road from there to Indy is a long one.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, when you retire and you do other things, it's also, I still do some podcasts. We can go over those things too. And a couple people have written books on me and things like that. So, I've been pretty lucky, and it was all because of my parents.
I love that. We need more messages like that in our community.
Because of my parents.
I know the road was long, but at what point did you realize I'm on a road that's less traveled by most people who look like me?
Oh, man. Immediately.
Okay.
I went through a lot of training, speech therapy. I wanted to enunciate. I had to be able to enunciate, because if not, once you get there, someplace like this, everything you do is not going to be right.
It's going to be judged differently.
It's going to be judged differently.
Mm-hmm.
Great choice of verbiage. So I had to enunciate. I went to speech therapy, tutoring, you name it, all these things. And it just kind of becomes who you are. Mm-hmm. And I got to tell you, I mean, by the time I got to the IndyCar stuff, I had a publicist, all these people around me, somebody to hold the umbrella, somebody to pour water in my mouth. I mean, it's like, I'm just a dude from LA. Mm-hmm. It was a cool experience, but I had to humble myself too. My dad said, never forget who you are. You're still a brother. You're still a black guy. Mm-hmm. Don't get twisted. Don't get wind up in all of this. And my mother reminded me, and I forgot for a minute. Yeah. But then they had to bring me back down to earth. They were always around.
So when you raced in the Indy, what was it, 2002?
2002, Indy 500, yeah.
And of course, at that time, you're the second. You didn't know, or you did know?
No, I knew.
Okay.
Another funny story is Willy T. Ribs and Bill Cosby and Jello had attempted to run in 1994.
Mm-hmm. And Willy is the first.
He is the first person of color. He hooked up with Bill Cosby. Willy T. came from Trans Am cars. That they used to race over here at the Long Beach Grand Prix. He was the king of Trans Am back then. He wanted to make the leap from there to IndyCar. Hooked up with Bill Cosby and Jello. Funding is a big deal in that sport. Mm-hmm. And it's hard for us to get funding. It's hard for most drivers to get funding, but it's harder for us to get funding, especially from other Black-owned businesses that are interested. But he saw me on a race on ESPN running some entry-level stuff. Shifter karts. It's the go-karts with 6 speeds and 4-wheel disc brakes. And I used to kick a lot of butt in those things. And he said he was sitting at home in San Jose skipping through ESPN. They kept saying, George Mack, the only black driver. George Mack, the only black driver. Willy T called all the go-kart shops in Southern California until he got our home phone number.
Wow.
And called my parents' house.
He was determined. And
he started sending me sponsorship money just to help out. And then we crossed paths again later. But yeah, got to the Indy stuff after all of that. And I remember a lot of things that he told me.
Like what? What stands out the most?
He had been jaded, but at the same time, he had been jaded like my dad had been jaded because of all the things they had seen and been through. Mm-hmm. I hadn't experienced all these things yet. The racisms and the colloquialisms, the different things you've been called, blackity black, black, black. And I was determined to get away from that stigma. Mm-hmm. But he sort of, in a way, kind of got me ready to get there, kind of. Once I got there, all of what he told me was entirely true. I still talk to him every once in a while, but yeah, Yeah.
I think it's difficult, to your point, I'm closest to my Aunt Louise as far as my aunts and uncles go. And she, from the time I was a kid, she's like, girl, they gonna do this to you. They gonna do that to you. They gonna do this to you. And I'd be like, Auntie, you can't say that. That's not true. It's not gonna happen. And then now I find myself to my nephew like, okay, they gonna do this to you. They gonna do it. And you try not to be that way. But I think especially when you have a level of ambition to get to waters that are kind of uncharted by people who look like us,
Yeah.
it's very difficult to not be jaded because you done been through the ringer.
And at this point in my life, I've been through tons. I mean, this podcast would be so long if I told you everything.
Right.
But you do grow as a person. You do meet some cool pilgrims. I call them pilgrims. Mm-hmm. You do meet some cool pilgrims and some cool Asians and other people. On that level, on that platform, the world is watching.
Was there a moment that, as far as the racism is concerned, that you were like, you know what, I'm just going to bow out. I don't even want to deal with this.
No.
It never got that bad?
It did, but I was never going to do that.
Right.
I was prepared to die in the race car that day. I said it, I think on Channel 7 or it might be Channel 5. I'm not sure which one at this point. Mm-hmm. We were an underfunded team. 310 Racing their heart was in the right place. It costs millions to run these things. Right. And for them to take a chance on me, they did their homework, obviously, but for them to take a chance on me was huge. Before the 500, I crashed a race just before.
At like 200 miles an hour, right?
Yeah.
How... Yeah. When I read that, I was like, 200 miles an hour? People struggle to get in a crash at 40 miles an hour, and they're shy. They're a little timid when they get behind the wheel again. But you, 200 miles an hour, and you were like, let's get back to it.
I was born to be a race car driver, I believe. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting also is my mother, I remember she told my dad, just because you're a motorhead, don't try to cram this down his throat. So right. I think that's why they tried go-karts last. Mm-hmm. There was bicycles, there was motors. I had a couple motorcycles. That was always aggressive, though. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't afraid. I've broken plenty of bones, plenty of surgeries, sprains, taking the skin off a different thing. Oh, yeah.
But you still love it.
Still love it.
Do you still watch it?
Every race.
I love that.
Every race. Just watched NASCAR last week. NASCAR are different cars,
right.
But I still watch that stuff. There's a couple guys I grew up racing go-karts with that they now run NASCAR. Kevin Harvick is one.
Oh, okay.
We were rookie juniors. We were about the same age. We ran the same. He was from Bakersfield. Mm-hmm. I was from Southern California. So we would travel around. We go to Bakersfield, kick his ass on his own track.
I love it.
But now he's a big-time NASCAR driver. Mm-hmm. Probably made $20 million or so.
That's crazy.
I know it. And
just
when we were kids, it's a family sport. Is really originally how it started for us. My dad had a go-kart. I had a go-kart. Mm-hmm. My sister had a go-kart. My mom had a go-kart.
Right.
And we'd go to the track and we'd beat and bang on the go-kart track, and everybody else kind of lost interest. I stayed with it, and me and my dad persevered. He started a business behind that, Mack Enterprises. We built race engines. We ended up with a lot of customers. My dad still has an airplane hangar at Chino Airport today.
No way.
An airplane hangar. Yeah. Right now. And he still builds engines. He's got 40, 50 customers. Still builds engines. He loves building race engines and the whole sport.
So Mack Enterprise, was that the first family business?
Yes.
And that came out of a love for cars?
Yes.
And then when you realized, okay, I'm going to still have this love for racing, but now I need to shift to do something else, did you automatically know I have to be an entrepreneur?
I tried my hand at management. I managed a couple car dealers. It's always been car related.
Okay.
For the most part, which is why the beauty supply is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. But it's always been car related. I managed a couple dealerships, not the general manager, but just under that parts and service director. So I ran the body shop, the parts department, the repair department, had 50, 60 employees at one dealership. So kind of a big deal, but the racing stuff and the car stuff, yeah, it's always been with me.
So what was your first business?
That I started?
Yeah.
What was my first business?
You had that many?
I've had a few. My first business was other than the one with my dad, the Mack Enterprises
Right.
thing. Was I bought a also car related, bought a repo company.
Oh, you bought a repo company.
Yeah. It's more of a collection company, but we did repos as well. But the collection company end of it, I was hooked up with several banks, and they would fax the work over to me. Sometimes it was to pick up construction equipment that companies fell back on payments on, boats.
That sounds
cars.
dangerous.
Yeah, it was, but it's kind of interesting.
People are crazy.
They are. They are. Big rigs. And, you know, one time with this one company, we picked up 8 big rigs in a night that paid $2,500 a piece. We picked up 8 of them.
How do you pick up a big rig?
You get in them and you hot wire them, or the bank gives you the spare key.
Oh,
because
okay.
they want you to go get their equipment back so they can resell it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we had the keys. They would tell us, you know, where the truck or car might be located. I send my guys out after midnight, and once we found it, they call the PD in the area, and you get a DR number, is what it's called. Mm-hmm. Hey, this is our repo number, name of our company. We just picked this up. This is the VIN number. This is the plate number. People are going to come out and think that the vehicle's stolen. They're going to call you.
Mm-hmm. Well, are they though? Because I feel like they know how far they are behind on their payments. That would be my first thought. They got my car.
They got my car.
They got it.
But some people would call, and then the police would say, no, it was repossessed, and this is the number of the company that took it. You got to call them.
You know, when I started this podcast, I said, you know, Black-owned beauty supply store. Right. There's not that many Black-owned beauty supply stores, which is a fact. But I also know that we kind of got off on a little tangent before we started. You don't really like the term black.
I don't like the blackety black terms, no.
Can you explain to me why?
Well, I have legally and lawfully in a court of law changed my name, but it's actually a title of nobility, which we had before. You and I had a small conversation before about some people that are out there that are aware of it. My title now is Baron Bay.
Baron Bay.
Bay is a title of nobility, spelled Bey. We go way back with the Indians. That's why some of us have a red tint to us. We're chilling with them. When Christopher Columbus pulled in talking about he discovered America, we're sitting back fishing. We're already here. How you discover it? But this is typically what happens is our flavor, our stuff gets stolen or appropriated, like the Huntington Beach land, and they had to give it back. Yeah. There's a lot of that just hasn't come to light yet. But anyway.
So tell me the title you go by now again?
Baron Bay.
Baron Bay. I like that.
Bay. Bay means governor. I still answer to George. Some people still call me George. If articles are written, they still call me George. Sometimes, I'll kind of go into it. You're very open to it, so I'll go into it with you. Sometimes I keep it kind of short and simple.
I like Baron Bay, though.
Right.
How did it make you feel when you changed your name? Like, how did that feel? I've always wanted to ask, we had in Denver, Raouf. I forget what his name was originally, but he had Tourette's. One of my favorite basketball players of all time. And I remember when he changed his name, and I used to tell my mom all the time, like, he just looks happier since he's changed his name. So I didn't get a chance to ask him that, so I'm going to ask you. Yes. Did it change your disposition at all when you changed your name?
It did, and it does daily. You are no longer under this blackety black moniker, but the last names that we've been carrying were the last names of the slave owners.
Right.
So by doing this, you give the slave name back, take on your title of nobility.
I've always thought about it, but, as a woman, I'm like, my last name is going to change that. Yeah. But you know what? That might not actually be true.
You know what else is interesting, Jackie? So my wife is pregnant. She's 8 months pregnant.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. We're very excited. Hi, honey. We changed my 3-year-old's last name, legally and lawfully as well. Okay. The lineage goes with the father.
Right.
Also. Changed her name when I changed mine. Changed my wife's. The one that has not even been born yet will be born a Bay.
Right. You own is it an auto body shop as well?
Auto repair. Auto repair, also in Long Beach.
Okay.
I love Long Beach. I've lived here for a long time. As a matter of fact, the condo I lived in is just right across the street almost, walking distance.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And, the auto repair shop, it's a real good size. It's on the corner. It's a Coast Auto Care. I don't know. Is that kind of shameless to kind of do that?
No. Say it again.
It's Coast Auto Care and Tires. It's 550 East Pacific Coast Highway.
Okay.
90806. It's on the corner of Pacific Coast Highway and Atlantic. I was looking for some place to invest some money. I did some research for just about a year. And I was just about to purchase a coin laundry, which is also
I've always wanted to do that.
A Korean or Chinese kind of a thing. I've kind of really wiggled my way into the reasons why they do these things, because we have, is it $1 trillion in buying power annually? We buy everything from everyone.
But us.
And now I know why the Koreans and the Chinese come to our country, get the loans from our banks that we cannot acquire,
and go straight to our communities.
Straight to our community, give us bad customer service in some cases.
Because they don't,
But we still go when we spend money there. This is not the reason why I got into beauty supplies. I asked my wife, hey, what's the deal with beauty supplies?
And she probably went, let me tell you.
She did. She said, good one, they do decent. I asked a really good friend of mine, they do pretty decent. I asked my sister Stephanie. She said they make money. Did a lot of research. And along the way, after I did the name change, I started my own estate. It's the Barron Bay Estate. The Barron Bay Estate purchased my auto repair shop, Coast Auto Care. It's under my estate now, and my estate just recently acquired LB Hair Gallery, which is where you and I met. 1323 Long Beach Boulevard, 90813. And I purchased it from a Korean couple that had been there for 23 or 24 years.
This might seem intrusive, and I might be casting some aspersions here, but did they know you were Black?
No, I'm an open book. I tell you, what I did was I had looked at several other beauty supplies, several other coin laundries. I was in escrow with a coin laundry.
Okay.
At the time. It was in the valley, so it was a little bit further. But I'm still in the back of my mind thinking beauty supplies. Wow. Made these people an offer. They didn't see me.
So is you just doing it all online? You had a broker?
On the phone.
On the phone, okay.
The broker was a Korean. This is what's very interesting, Jackie. The sellers were Korean. The broker and the realtor are Korean. The escrow company is Korean. The inventory company that I had to pay to come and double check the inventory in the store was Korean.
So did they know you were not?
No.
Okay, and that was my question, because I have a few friends that are trying to get into this slowly but surely, and what you're finding is you can go in there all day, every day, and get everything you want as far as gels, your shampoos and conditioners.
Yeah.
But if you want, to do some box braids, you're going to have to go somewhere else.
Yes. Because
they might have a few. They're the one I usually go to. They might have a few bags, but it's not enough bags to do a whole head of hair, you know, kind of thing. Or it's some wild out color that I'm just not about to do. And so you end up having to go, because I'm so concerned with, spending my dollar with us.
Right.
I end up having to go to like 3 different beauty supply stores to get what I need.
Unfortunately.
And so I started talking to people and just asking questions. And there's one woman on Hawthorne, on Hawthorne Boulevard in Hawthorne, and she owns 3 different salons. And I was like, girl, I've been to all your salons and you don't have the hair I need. What is happening? And so she's like, well, and she kind of gave me some, glossed over answer. And I was like, no, I want to know, like, why is this a thing? Because it's not just you. And she goes, well, because I'm trying to work my way into, because there's only 3 manufacturers of hair extensions. They're all Korean owned. They own all the contracts, and they don't want to give me a contract. So I have to basically I'm trying to wiggle my way in and be nice and acquiesce to ridiculous requests. And she said, and I said, is that why your stuff is more expensive? She's like, yeah, because when I do get the product from them, they're charging me three times as much. More.
Then she has to mark it up to make a few dollars too.
Right.
Unfortunately, you are not the only person, Jackie, that has mentioned that to me. You're probably the fifth or the sixth in the last 2 months since I closed escrow that say, how in the hell did you do this? They don't want us in this industry. They did not see me, Jackie. My estate made the offer. They accepted the offer because it was a cash deal. Hooray for cash. Right. I made them an offer they would not refuse. They could not refuse. But they still hadn't seen me. The offer was signed. And then what I put in the offer was very interesting. I've become a little shrewd after getting caught with my pants down, as my dad would say. My dad's very country. He's as country as Steve Harvey. He has an accent and wears a hat. And oh yeah, my dad's country. But he says, look, boy, he said, they don't want your black ass to buy it.
Sounds like something Pops would say.
So what happened was the first escrow, I closed it out because when I got the fee sheet back from escrow, it was $50,000 more. So I called my dad and I said, I already have this money set aside. This really pissing me off. He said, well, look, your Aunt Joyce, I sent the paperwork to my Aunt Joyce because she used to have an escrow company.
Okay.
I said, Auntie, what do I do here? And she said, boy, look, let me send it over. Let me look at it. That's what Joyce says. Boy, let me look. She looked at it and she says, I see a couple things. The realtor, after he wrote up the offer, he changed some of the numbers. That's against the law. You can hold him to the cross on that. I give you that information. That's your ammunition. Figure out what you want to do. I was so in my feelings, though, for a while, Jackie.
As I would have been, too.
I'm mad. You really trying
you just really just went behind my back and tried to, what the hell is this?
So you know what I did? This was seriously a leap of faith. Me and my wife and my daughter, we lived in Corona. I was driving back and forth all the time. I said, got to move back to Long Beach. I already done that. I already paid the money. The moving truck is in front of me. I'm following the moving truck. My wife is following me in another car. Coming from Corona down to the line. We're all the way in 100%. And it hit me. I'm going to call this Korean realtor back and I'm going to tell him, listen, this is where we're at with this. I know I lost my temper with you before. I apologize. But you know what you did is against the law.
Right.
What I want you to do, since now I already closed escrow and I lost money, call the Korean, your friends back. I don't know if you're friends or what. Call them back. Do your little thing. Resell the deal to them. And if you do that for the same numbers that we agreed on before, I will not file a complaint on your license. So I really just put him in the twist. And I said, he said, his English is really bad and choppy, but basically what he said was, you're right. I thought, thank you, Auntie Joyce. I love you. And he says, you're right. And I said, just because you saw my bank account, because I had to show proof of funds. I sent that. And they still hadn't seen me.
Oh, so this isn't like a racism thing. This is he got money. Let's get some more money thing.
See if we can squeeze another 50 out.
Okay.
So he says, I'll call you back in a couple of days. I said, make it a good couple of days. His American name is Joey. And I'm sitting there, everything crossed, legs, eyes. And he said, they accepted the terms. We're good to go. I said, good for you. I said, because I was really going to file that complaint. I said, this is not how you treat people that are paying you.
And then did you negotiate the contracts with the manufacturers as well? Because that seems to be the biggest hurdle that people are running into.
I've heard of a few issues that we have had trying to get into that industry. And what's happened is, like you said, the Koreans and the Chinese, they have it cornered. And mainly it's the Koreans in the beauty industry. They hadn't seen me either. What I put in the offer was, number one, I can sit in the store for 30 days straight while we're in escrow. I want to see the books. I want to see the clientele. I want to see the inventory. I want to see everything. It's going to be the complete equivalent to a rectal examination for this kind of money. They charged me over $200,000 for the inventory alone. And I was a cash buyer. So when I have this in the bank, I'm feeling good.
Right.
I'm going to spend all of this.
Right.
You know, and it puckers you up a little bit. It made me nervous.
Yeah.
You don't have that cushion anymore. So it's got to work. So I put that in the paperwork. I put a few other things. Everything inside I want. I wanted the computers. I want everything. All you leave me the keys and you get out.
Right.
The other thing I put in there was that all of the accounts. I want all of the same accounts, same terms, 15 days, 30 days return check. I don't have to pay you right now when you deliver my stuff. I get 2 weeks to 30 days to return check to pay for the goods I received. They accepted and signed all of it. You know, along the way, you learn. You learn a ton. I've fallen down, scraped my knees up a little bit. I'm still here. I wanted to have something for us in the city of Long Beach. I'm here in Long Beach. I'm here. I go into my store every day. I bounce back and forth between the two businesses, but I'm here. I live in downtown, right down the street. I'm here. You'll see me in the supermarket. You know what I mean? I'm here. I'm nothing special. I'm just a guy that works hard. My dad taught me that.
Car repair shop.
Yes.
So my car needs a whole bunch of work.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to have to bring it over. And that is located, it's called what again?
Coast Auto Care and Tires.
Okay, and the address?
550 East Pacific Coast Highway, Long Beach, 90806. Right on the corner of Pacific Coast Highway and Atlantic. It's across the street from Poly High School.
Oh, perfect. I know
right on
exactly
that corner.
That
Yeah, you can't miss it. It takes up the whole block. It's
nice.
huge.
So I will be bringing my car over there, and you know you're going to see me again at the beauty supply store. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on the show and just kind of sharing your journey. For young entrepreneurs out there who might be a little scared to take that leap, what advice do you have for them?
Oh, boy. My whole life has been a fight. From the racing to the... Oh, wow. I just keep fighting. You know, you fall down and, you know, I cry sometimes. I'm not afraid to say that. I'll cry. It kind of cleanses the soul, so to speak, a little bit. But I refuse just to be a lay down and give up.
Yeah.
I refuse. And when I mentioned to you earlier, Jackie, that I was prepared to die in that race car, I literally was prepared to die in the car that day. I'd already made up my mind. If I can't qualify for this thing on speed, I'll die trying. I was the last car to qualify. We made the field, and I'm still the only person of color in history to qualify and run the Indy 500 still. And it's because of that it just completely changed my life in the way that I think. We can do anything we want to do out here, Jackie. We've been here the longest.
Yep.
We have been through the most. What other race or nationality of people would still be here fighting to this day? We're still here. We're God's people.
I just want you to know that I'm quite proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your journey. He brought me some pictures.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That I'm going to get signed. I'm so excited about that. But I just want to thank you, Baron Bay, for coming on the show. And thank you for sharing insight on why you've made some of the moves you've made throughout your life and teaching me something.
But I'm still learning myself. So it's all teachable, and these are teachable moments. And I enjoy sharing these things, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
What good does it do me if I'm holding it inside?
Right. I appreciate you.
I'd love to be back.
Yeah. We're going to have to maybe cut up some behind the scenes clips because we went off on several tangents that I can guarantee you did not make this show, but it was great. This is what we need, more communication. You never know who you're going to meet in the neighborhood. I feel like Mr. Rogers when I say that, but you never know who you're going to meet.
Right.
Just talk to each other. That's how we build community. Building community is also how we keep each other safe. So thank you again, Baron Bay, for being on the show. And remember, if you have to speak a word, make it a good one. We'll see you next time.